Modern remasters of video games can often be a pretty hit or miss affair, basically in terms of audience reception, production quality, and faithfulness to the original experience there as well. Often they're simply seen as minimal effort ways for companies to make a quick buck off gamers' easily excitable sense of nostalgia by bringing out a 2018 Super HD 4K Anniversary Edition that no one really asked for at all. Other times, they're a faithful representation of a beloved product repackaged and purposed for the modern era. The term remaster can really apply to a broad range of products in the games industry, and while sometimes remake or re-release may be more appropriate, they're all kind of interchangeable, and the words are often recognized as describing old games that are now being updated or remade, re-released, whatever, for the modern time, whether that's in graphics, gameplay, audio, or all of the above and more. For an example, on the smaller end of that scale, you can look at something like the Skyrim Special Edition, which I touched on back in the Skyrim in 2018 retrospective video, where the game was basically re-released on modern consoles with a bit of improved graphics and audio, but the actual game was pretty much the same as before, and on PC, it's not a ton of difference going on there. But on the other hand, you can look at something like the upcoming Resident Evil 2 remake, which is basically just a whole new product, due to just all the technical advancements we've had since the game's released 20 years ago in 1998. And just like anything, there's always some that aren't going to be worth your time, but a modern remaster today can normally justify its existence. But when you get down to it, a great remaster doesn't just have to make the graphics shinier. It will go the extra mile and it'll make improvements to things that people either didn't expect or just didn't know they even wanted to begin with. When Age of Empires 2 HD Edition was announced at the start of 2013, I don't really think many people actually saw it coming. It was arguably the most popular game in the series, and its remaster for modern PCs was something seemingly no one had really been asking for, but it proved an immediately popular concept for those wanting to revisit the acclaimed strategy game. Personally, I was enticed as soon as I heard the news, and after not playing Age of Empires 2 for what was at that point in 2013, probably over half a decade, I was really excited and looking forward to playing the game with friends on a modern PC with higher resolution settings and Steam multiplayer support built right in. So that leaves us with the question, was it any good? Well, yeah, it was. I had a ton of fun of it with launch, and since then I've put almost 50 hours into the remaster, which is something I wasn't expecting when I first started. It's fair to say it was extremely well received by fans as well. If you look on the Steam user reviews, it gives a pretty good picture of the fan opinion. And while critics at the time weren't actually as hot on it, with some wishing for more changes to the core game, things like that, if anything, it's got more respect over time, and even in 2018, it's been 5 years since it came out, it's still something that me, my friends, and a lot of other people go back to, and not just to get a dose of that sweet, sweet nostalgia. It's still just a great game despite its 20-year age, with its variety of civilizations, its charming art style, memorable sound effects, and its really tight and enjoyable gameplay. And the additions that the remaster brings to the table are, in my opinion, really good for the game and just make it better on all counts. Starting with the multiplayer support, which in my opinion is the most impactful of all the updates, it allows players to simply and easily create or join friends' games either through the game itself or using Steam. With having the MSN Gaming Zone of all things supporting the game until its closure in 2006, basically, if you wanted to play it, you were required to use other services like the previously mentioned Game Ranger or Hamachi to get some funky LAN in there if you weren't just in the same room with them. So having the proven reliability of Valve's network being used for the remaster was something that a lot of people appreciated. The next obvious improvement is the graphical quality and support for modern standards like high resolutions and widescreen monitors, such as making the game scalable to fit the large pixel-dense screens of today. And they did all this while keeping the style of the game intact, and looking at each edition side by side, you can definitely tell the difference of quality, while the game still looks as it should. There were other graphical elements that were improved as well as the resolutions, and while still keeping the game's aesthetic very much alive, I think they did a great job. When it comes down to it, I think Age of Empires 2 HD Edition is my favourite remaster of all time. And while some may call it lacking due to its lack of updates to the original game, things like that, I think it actually succeeds because of the restraint they showed when developing it. I mean, in my mind, this is the perfect kind of remaster. It's one that keeps the core of the game more or less identical to the original, yet it upgrades it with tweaks and additional features that make the game more accessible and easier to enjoy in the modern day. But that's not to say I don't love full remakes when appropriate. Something like Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green are great examples of that. I'm really glad they chose to go this route with Age of Empires 2. And for those who criticised it for not bringing enough to the table, it was never really marketed as an entire remake to the game from the ground up. It's even in the title, Age of Empires 2 HD Edition. This is still the Age of Empires 2 you know and love, not some cash grab bastardization of a beloved classic. Looking at you, Modern Warfare Remastered. And if you're looking for something more than what the HD Edition offers, Microsoft actually announced back in 2017 that they were working on a definitive edition, similar to what they've already done with Age of Empires 1, though we haven't heard any mention of that since the announcement, basically a year ago in Gamescom 2017, so we'll see what happens with that. And when you get down to it, there's no real tried and true way to make a good remaster. It really depends on the game and the community around it. For something like Age of Empires, I don't think the community would really accept anything that wasn't true to the original. Any sort of remaster or remake would need to encapsulate what made the game so good to begin with. And that's why I think the route taken with the HD edition was the right one. Keeping the game intact so it retained all of what people loved about it 19 years ago, while making it more accessible now for those who wanted to dive back in, or maybe even try it out for the first time for the younger generation. Back when I played the original Age of Empires 2 back in the day, I never thought it would arguably be more relevant now than what it was back then, 19 years ago when it was released. And I really hope this trend of bringing classics back to the forefront with real care and effort put into it continues into the future. Thanks for watching everyone, we'll see you later.